Good evening. Welcome to the Volunteer and Combination Officers section webinar. I'm John Buckman, and I'll be the facilitator for tonight's presentation. I'm excited that we have Chief Tim Holman from German Township Fire and EMS in Ohio to speak with us tonight about discipline. It's not a four-letter word. And we all know as leaders that many times discipline is perceived as a negative response to an event, but discipline can also be positive. So we're going to talk about those things tonight. So let's move ahead here. We'll talk a little bit about what the VCOS is doing. This program is voice over IP technology. If you have problems, all your microphones have been muted. You experience technical difficulties, email webinars@ifc.org or via the chat function. We will take questions sent to us through the chat questions at the end of the presentation. That's why I just talked about chat, question, answer. You're encouraged to share comments and or submit questions for Tim, and we'll do our best to answer them at the end of the presentation. So what's the VCOS been doing? Well, since the middle of last year, we released a chaplain guide for local fire departments who need the services of a chaplain. What does the chaplain expect from the fire department, and what does the fire department expect from the chaplain? It's not just putting the hat on saying, oh, you're the chaplain. We all know it's much more important and more difficult than that. The VCOS has worked on a new brand. We have a new logo. We're doing some marketing, increased webinars, trying to deliver more education to you, the members, and the non-members. And we want to increase membership. We're looking at Symposium in the Sun 2023, which is our flagship presentation. We have over 550 people join us in November in Clearwater Beach, Florida. We encourage you, if you've never been, to come visit with us. It's an exciting 3.5 days of presentations of some of the best speakers in the world. So hopefully you'll consider coming to that. We hopefully have been increasing communications with you. We get a newsletter. We've written revised many of the ribbon reports, Yellow Ribbon Report, the Lavender Ribbon Report, or two that's been updated in the last 6 months. The VCOS, along with the National Volunteer Fire Council and the International Society of Fire Service Instructors, have developed a new, revised, actually, the NVFC's Training for Volunteer Firefighters white paper. So if you haven't seen those things, go to the VCOS webinar website and download. They're all free of charge, whether you're a member or not. Our newsletter comes out at least every other month. The Chairman's Corner comes out every other week. And then we have a presence on social media and various platforms. Facebook, Instagram are two of them that I know we're on for sure. I don't do some of the other ones. I don't do TikTok and some of those other things, but I'm sure we're doing that. We are looking at developing a critical thinking boot camp for chief officers. And Tim has been helping me with that. We've got pretty much an outline laid out. We're going to take that to the VCOS board in March when they meet in Nashville and see if they want to push that forward, maybe starting around July. It will not be free, but it won't be exorbitant. It will be online, and so that we can again hopefully meet the needs of our membership without everybody having to travel. We know travel is expensive. Hotels are expensive. We know when we pay for the food in Florida, the hotel wanted $55 for lunch, and they count the plates. And the number of plates times $55 is what we get charged. And we know somebody's got to pay for that. We just can't do that out of magic. So we know online may not be the best way to deliver training, but it is one way to deliver training. So we're also doing more marketing of our course deliveries. We have the Beyond Hoses and Helmets. We have the Labor Management Initiative. We have the Transitioning course, and we have the Fire Rescue Organizational Guidance course that you could register or request to host. So we hope that you'll consider doing that. So Chief Holman has been a fire chief for many years. I won't even tell you how many. I'll let him do that. Fire Chief of the Year, a very fine individual, very caring, very concerned, good leader. He's been fire chief at his department for a long time. You know, in this day and age, you can't do that without being a good leader and meeting the needs of your people. So with that, Chief Holman, it's all yours.
Thanks, John. This is a topic that a lot of people avoid. I think it's fearful for some people, and hopefully this evening we will take some of those fears away from you and have you looking at discipline from a different point of view. So we're going to start out with, here's a true case history. An off-duty firefighter went out drinking one night. He had his duty shirt on. He eventually becomes drunk. On his way home, he stops at the station to talk to friends. After a short visit, he gets back in his truck and drives through the yard of the resident next to the station. He begins doing donuts in the yard. He ran over a small tree and did extensive damage to flower beds before leaving to go home. Many people witnessed this. They knew he was a firefighter from that department. What action is needed in this case? And I will tell you, one of the officers from this department contacted me and asked me, how long should an individual be suspended for this type of activity? I'm an individual that I don't think suspensions do much good. What suspensions do is give people the opportunity to seek out other opportunities. And they may say, this free time is pretty nice, so I don't think I'll go back to the department. Furthermore, what are some of the problems in this particular case history? Number one, he went out drinking by himself. So he's planning on drinking and driving. Two, he had his duty shirt on, so he's representing their department. He becomes drunk. He does drink and drive. He stops at the station. Nobody says anything to him. Nobody tries to stop him. They allow him to leave the station, and then he does the damage next door. So there's a multitude of problems here, and this individual has had other problems. So there comes a time when you have to prune the tree. You prune a tree to make it grow better. And sometimes when you can rid the department of firefighters like this, the department does grow. And they eventually let him go, but it took 2 more incidents before they finally decided to let him go. So we'll talk more about cases like this in a few minutes. I found this definition to punish or penalize for the sake of enforcing obedience, perfecting moral character, to bring a group or person under control. With that type of definition, an officer is going to struggle with discipline because I think you will find that this is a bad definition. So we'll come back to that later as well. The primary purpose of discipline is to change behavior, not to punish. And if we can get that concept down, I think we can be much more successful in guiding our people when they have problems. Now, I have my way of doing things, but I will tell you, I think that if we hire the right people, we probably won't have to use discipline very often. And John and I were talking earlier, discipline is you wear the right uniform when you're supposed to. You do the right thing when you're on a call. That's part of discipline. So you can look at this in a lot of different ways, but our objective as leaders is to make our people successful. And part of that is we need to have them doing the right things at the right time for the right reason. So here's one incident of how we can set the course and start changing the environment in which we work. On our department, we use something that's very similar to this. When somebody picks up an application, we give them a set of expectations, and all these expectations have very specific guidelines for each one. This goes with them. I want them to read that over, maintain and promote a winning attitude, practice golden rule, be a team player, seek excellence in all you do that which is right, stay focused, participate, and capitalize on adversity. If they agree with those expectations, they'll sign the paper. If we do hire them, that expectation sheet will go into their file. If they go off base, we pull that expectation sheet back and we lay it down in front of them and say, how do we get you back on course? This is what you agreed to, and you violated several of these expectations. This way, everybody knows what's expected of them right from day one. The other thing I will tell you is I have become very picky about who we hire. And I say hire not only for a career department, but for a volunteer department. I feel that you only volunteer once. After that, it's a job, and you have a set of expectations that you're going to help the community. So I think the interview process that we go through, it's very rigid. We have a whole list of questions. By the way, we will be giving you some handouts, and it will have the expectations. It'll also have our mission statement. Our mission statement hangs up in our apparatus room, and when we take on new employees, we take them out and we have them read the expectations and sit there for a little while, and then I have them write it down how they're going to meet each one of those mission guidelines. So they know before we offer them a job that there's a lot that we expect from them. So it's not a surprise. I will tell you, some of the people will back out at that point in time because it's just not what they want. I think they think it's too stringent. But when you look at our mission and our expectations, I think you'll find that we're not asking them to do anything but serve the community in a right way. So sometimes we need to correct people's actions, and sometimes those actions are due not to because of the individual, but due to the officer. So here's some key questions that every officer should ask themselves before they approach a person not performing well. Have I clarified the expectations? Do they know exactly what's expected of them on a call, off a call, in training, and all those different elements of the job? Have I provided the resources? Do they have the tools that they need to do the job? Have I taught the skills? Do they have the basic skills that needed to perform the way we want them to perform? And have I provided the time? Now, when I say the time, sometimes we don't give them enough time to perform a task. And your departments have to figure out how much time that is for those tasks. But sometimes we rush them through, and they may be a new volunteer, and when we rush them, it creates more stress for them, and then they may mess up. So have we actually provided the time, or are we rushing them through? It's still a learning phase. Did the person acknowledge an understanding of the expectations? If you can answer yes to all these questions, the officer is not at fault. So this lies with the individual. Now what we have to decide is what is actually causing that performance issue. So let's look at different performance factors. Are they competent in their job? Do they have the skills needed to perform the job that they're asked to do? That could be EMS skills, that could be firefighting skills. Motive. Is there a negative attitude that is causing negative behavior? What external factors are impeding accomplishment? Now, I will tell you, that is I have been in a lot of fire departments around the country, and when they talk about performance issues, motive is probably the number one that they come up with. This is the attitude, the negative attitude within the organization. Attitudes are very difficult to correct. That's another reason we're picky at the beginning of the hiring process. I tend to say we hire for attitude, we'll train the skill. And because we can train people, but we got to get somebody in that has a good attitude, a positive attitude. And that's not always easy. The means, do they have the tools, the equipment, and the experience to complete the task that we're asking them to do? Feedback. Has positive and negative feedback on performance been provided? Or do we wait until they make multiple mistakes and then we start yelling at them and come down on them? Now, the other question is, can I give negative feedback in a positive way? Absolutely. Our officers are pretty good at that. We have done a lot of work in that area, and I think the culture of our department allows us to support the individual very well. So when they do have a problem, it's not that we're coming down on them. We're not writing them up. We're not giving them some days off. We're working with them to try to get them back on track. The other thing is, have we given them the opportunity? Did we take away the opportunity to perform? Many officers like to micromanage. And I always tell our officers, if I have to micromanage, then I don't need the officers. That's not our job to micromanage. Our job is to teach them, make sure they know how to perform, and then give them the opportunity to perform. Then there's the standards. Do they understand the standards that we have set, the SOPs, the personnel policy, all of the different rules and regulations that we have to abide by? Do they understand? Not only do they understand the policy, but do they understand why that policy exists? Now, I think it's interesting. You can, not only in the fire service, but in corporate America too, you can take a policy manual and you can leaf through that policy manual and you can say, oh, that's when Bill did that, or that's when Jim did that, or that's when Betty did that. We write policies. It's called a shotgun approach. We write policies to take care of. One person messes up, we don't want to approach to that individual, so we'll write a policy to prevent it from happening again. So in essence, what we're doing is we're punishing everybody for what one person's mistake was. So I think that's real important. Approach the individual, take care of it. Brunacini used to say that we only needed one page in our policy manual, and that one page just said, "Be nice." And I think if we did that, we could make big strides in the fire service. So those are the performance factors. Let's look at process. This is a process that I've been using for years. I've taught it all over the country. Providing and maintaining the focus is the first thing. And that goes back to the expectations, the mission. I think organizations, especially in the fire service, should be mission driven. I see mission statements that are so lengthy, nobody could ever memorize them. We have bullet points on our mission statement, and that will be in one of the handouts that we provide for you. But we have to maintain that focus. We want people focused on the mission and the expectations every run that they go on. So when an individual gets off track, we may use coaching. Coaching means that we're going to try to inspire, we're going to try to motivate them, challenge them, and 90% of all of the performance issues that you see can be corrected with coaching if it's done properly. The second one is to teach, instruct, guide, give them new skills or perfect the skills that they currently have. And the last one is counsel, advise, correct. Now, most people, when I say we're going to counsel you, negative comes to mind because everybody has been in a counseling session where it was more of a butt chewing than it was anything else. When we talk about counseling, we're talking about we're taking it to a different level than coaching, and we're going to try to help this individual go through. I've got 2 case histories at the end of this program that will it'll get more in detail on that. Now, here's the people within your organization. You have a high job, high personal maturity. This individual, this is your star employee. You want to hire a bunch of these people. They have good skill when they come to you. They have the ability to act on those skills. They also they're like a sponge. They want to absorb more skills, and their personal maturity is very high as well. That's their attitude. They've got a great attitude. They're just people that you like to be around. And you would like more people like that in your organization. To keep these people on track, all we have to do is coach. The next individual, this is the high maintenance individual. This individual knows the job inside and out. but they have low to moderate personal maturity. So they have high job maturity, they know their job, but they have an attitude, and it's an attitude that erodes away at the organization. They pull people down, they don't lift people up. These people know how to walk the line, so they don't really completely break the rules, but they're right on that edge. And they do that on purpose because they know there's not a whole lot that you can do about it. These people hurt the morale within your organization, and we have to deal with it. These individuals, all these individuals, we will start with coaching. And if that doesn't work, then we'll move into the next one. So with this individual, we'll start coaching. And if it doesn't work, then we're going to start counseling. These people are very difficult. It's hard to get rid of these people because they take everything right to the line. They don't go past the line. These are people that, most of our time should be spent with our star employees, but most of our time is spent with these type of people. And my theory is, in working with organizations all over the country, about 10% of your department fall into this category. And if I'm wrong, you can call me out on that. But even in corporations, I've found the same thing, about 10%. And they don't know what to do with these people. They're hard to deal with. So the next one is high personal maturity, low to moderate job maturity. So this is a new person that comes in, has no experience with firefighting or EMS, but they have a great attitude when they come in. They want to learn. They want to do a good job. They're excited about being a member of your organization. And these people, we need to instruct. We need to give them the skills. They will absorb those skills, and they're happy about it. They want to do a good job for you. Now, we usually will team people up. We're going to have somebody that's been here a while. We'll team them up with this new individual. Now, in this list, do you want to team this individual up with a high job personal maturity, or do you want to team them up with a high job, low to moderate personal maturity? And I hope you said the first one, because if you team them up with the second one, they have high job maturity and they will teach that job, but they'll also teach the attitude. So now you just cloned another problem employee. And I say that employee because I think once you volunteer, you become an employee of the organization. The last one is low job and low personal maturity. This is the individual that after a couple of months, we say, how in the heck did we hire this individual? Because this individual has no motivation whatsoever. They've got a bad attitude. They don't want to learn. And it's like, what are they doing here? So this individual, you want to rid them of the organization within their probationary period. I don't know what the standard is in your departments. We have a 1-year probationary period. Now, people can snow you for a few months, but in that year period, I find that the true colors come out at some point in time. So this individual, you can try coaching, counseling, and instruction, but in most cases, you're going to have to get rid of this individual before they contaminate the rest of the organization. So if you have questions on that, we can talk about that later. I'll show you a little bit more in depth. Here's the 7 most common firefighter problems. And I've come up with this list after working with quite a few fire departments throughout the country. The first one is handling change. People say no one likes change. Well, the reason people don't like change is because they've never been taught how to manage change. So we're going to coach this individual. If we're going to go through a change process, we may have multiple people that we need to coach through this process. We want to make it comfortable for them. Most people see change as bad, but in many cases, change is very good for the organization. So if we can coach them through that process and teach them how to manage change, they will accept it much better. Absenteeism, this is the individual that doesn't come to duty night. or truck check off, or if it's a pay department, they're always just a little bit late, or they call in frequently. Just talked to an individual this morning that said one of their new recruits has been late at least 10 to 15 minutes over the last month. There's a problem there. So absenteeism, we start out coaching and it'll probably end up as counseling at some point. Chronic complainer, these are the people, they'll complain about everything. If you say, man, look at that bright blue sky, they'll say, no, there's a cloud right over there. They come up with something negative on everything. Again, you'll start coaching this individual, and then you'll go to counseling. Now, counseling, let's back up just a second. Let me explain a little bit more in detail on counseling. When I counsel somebody, I bring them into the office. I don't sit behind my desk. I pull up a chair so we're facing each other, and we're just going to talk. That's basically all this is. I'm not here to criticize them. I'm not here to ridicule them. I'm here to try to help them correct a problem. And if they trust me and they see how we've handled things like this in the past, it usually goes very well. So counseling is not necessarily a negative thing. It's a very positive thing if it's handled correctly. Anybody can pull somebody out into the office and chew them out and cuss them out, but that does little to change the behavior. The next one is firefighter conflict. This is where two firefighters, for whatever reason, they're having conflict. We have a tendency just to ignore that. If you ignore it, it will get worse, and it's going to spread throughout the organization because people will start taking sides. Firefighter conflict, we start out coaching, but it may come to counseling. I had two individuals years ago that came to me and they just could not get along. And the one, firefighter A, says, I want firefighter B. I can't work with him. I want to be put on a different shift. And then I had the other one come to me and said, I want firefighter A put on a different shift, or I want to go to a different shift. And so I didn't do either one of those. If I did that, what would happen? Everybody's going to want a different shift. So I called both of them in and I said, listen, and I said this with complete sincerity. I said, I will do anything that I can to help you find other jobs. And they kind of looked at me and they said, what do you mean? I said, I'll write you a letter to help you find other jobs. Well, we don't want to leave. And I said, well, you just told me you can't work with him. And you told me you can't work with him. That's not an option. You have to work together. And if you can't work together, you don't have to love each other. You don't even have to like each other. But you do have to cooperate with each other. You do have to support each other. And you have to work together. And if you can't do that, you can't work here. It took about 5 seconds for them to decide that they could get along. And they actually, about 6 months later, they were very good friends. So you see, never be held hostage by your firefighters. If they make a demand like that, where's it going to end? If I do it for them, I'm going to have to do it for somebody else. So never, ever be held hostage by your firefighter. The next one's chronic mistakes. Somebody's making chronic mistakes. Have we done a good job of teaching? Is it a teaching problem or is it a confidence problem? We have to figure that out. If it's a confidence problem, coaching will help that. If it's a skill problem, then maybe it's teaching or a combination of the two. Excuse maker, these are the people that they will make an excuse for everything that goes wrong. And it's usually their fault, but they'll give you 15 excuses on why they did what they did. I usually start out coaching these people. Let's talk about it. How did you make that mistake? Did you really make a mistake or did somebody else make the mistake? We talk through that. And when I counsel people, I don't do a whole lot of talking. I do a lot of asking questions because I want them to discover the problem in themselves. So if I do all the talking, that's not going to happen. So I have a list of questions that I usually ask when we go into a counseling session to try to get deeper into the problem. Personal problems, I'm just going to hit this briefly because one of the, at the end, we've got one scenario that dealt with personal problems. But counseling, I start out coaching and then I counsel. With the one at the end of the session, I'll let you figure out which one we used. Here's the first one. A young firefighter started posting videos on TikTok. One video made fun of an elderly patient. The second video was a derogatory comment about the local police department. The department has very strict policies in reference to social media posting. When the chief talked to her about the posts, she argued and stated it was her First Amendment right. So, how would you handle that? This individual has been on the department for 9 months, is still in probationary period, does not see that she has done anything wrong, and just wants to argue about it. So let's back up a second. What happens if this elderly patient, oh, let me throw in something else. When she did the TikTok video, she had the fire department shirt on, which that complicated it even more. So I asked her, I said, what if the elderly patient's granddaughter saw this and she knew what happened? What happened was she had to get up twice in the middle of the night to go to this patient, and both times the patient refused treatment. But the patient had just lost their husband, and she was lonely, and she needed somebody to talk to. Now, is that patient care? In my book, that is. That's showing compassion. Yes, I don't like getting up in the middle of the night either for something like that, but I also don't put derogatory remarks about them on TikTok. The second video, the cops called to have them check out this patient that they had arrested to make sure that they could take him to jail or do they need to go to the hospital. Had a couple cuts and bruises. They patched them up and they said it was okay. Then she says on her TikTok that the cops don't even know how to put a Band-Aid on a patient. So if that gets back to the police department, we've got a good relationship with them. That's going to create a lot of problems. So long story short, coaching did not work with her. Counseling did not work with her. So we terminated her. She went to a neighboring department and they hired her, and she's past her probationary period. They're trying to figure out how they can work better with her, but I don't see it happening. She has a history of this type of performance. So sometimes coaching doesn't work, sometimes counseling doesn't work, and you have to just get rid of the individual. Now this was kind of a neat situation. Beth was a great firefighter, EMT. She was like a sponge, eager to learn and absorbing new techniques. She wanted to learn everything she could. She was always early for her duty night and constantly cleaning and checking to assure everything was ready for the next call. She required little to no supervision. Her attitude was great, and she would always be there to help new employees or people. Sound like a perfect employee, and that she was. Now, let's stop her for the 4 different types of people that I said that you have in your organization. She would fall in which group? She's the high personal maturity and high job maturity. She's the star employee. But then something changed. She started missing trainings. She came in late for her duty night. She seemed stressed. She was frustrated. When the officer talked to her, she broke down and started crying. How would you handle this situation? Would you discipline or would you do something else? So when we started talking to her, now the old management philosophy was that you never got involved with people's personal problems. I think you have to if you're going to lead people, you're going to have to know something about those people. I need to know when my people are hurting. If they're hurting, I need to do something about it if I can. This is one reason we have such a high level of post-traumatic stress in the fire service, because we don't want to get involved in people's personal problems. And I've been through post-traumatic stress, and it was not easy. I had a lot of people to help me, but a lot of departments, they tell you to just suck it up and go on, and that's not the way to handle it. I know several departments that would have told her, you just need to suck it up. The problem she had was she was going through a very bad and angry divorce. She had a restraining order against her ex, and her mother was dying of cancer at the same time. Now, can you see why her performance dropped? I mean, I don't want her on a call at this point in time. We need to be helping her. So I said, listen, I don't want to need to see. The officer bumped her up to me, and I sat down and talked to her, and I said, I don't need to know all the details. I just know that you're hurting. And I said, we're here, we're family, we're here to help. So whatever you need, you let us know, and we will help you. Her performance immediately changed back to the way it was. All she needed to know is somebody was there to help her. Somebody was there to understand and willing to take the time and be a friend to her. And sometimes that's all it takes. Was that coaching? Probably. It was not counseling. I'd say it was coaching. But more than that, it was compassion. And she saw that we truly meant what we said. And we got her back on track. And this individual was paid. So she had some of the people, she had vacation time coming. And so when her mother died, everybody chipped in and donated some of their vacation time so she could take some extra time off. That's good stuff as far as I'm concerned. You can't teach that. That comes from the environment that you create. And I think our officers have done a good job of creating a very compassionate and caring environment for our people. So that's quick and dirty. The handout that I will give you will be a little bit more specific. I know you probably have some questions, and John will take those at this time if you have some.
All right. Thank you, Tim. Very, very interesting presentation. I do want to acknowledge, Tim, that, to the brothers and sisters that we have on the webinar from Guam, Alaska, Colorado, and Maryland. So we have a very wide berth of people all over the part of the world attending the webinar this evening. So thank you
That's
all
great.
for attending, and we hope it's been interesting to you. Tim, let's go back to that first scenario where you had the firefighter in a t-shirt and going out driving and drinking and then tearing up the neighbor's yard and so on and so forth. And I relate that to, and they went by the fire station. And so how did we, how do the officers ignore that? I've talked to one of the leading experts in courtroom testimony when fire departments get sued, and failure to act. Those three words, failure to act, is what gets most officers in trouble. And I'll relate that to the Memphis shooting within the last 2 weeks. Those police officers failed to act, those EMT and paramedics failed to act, and what happened. So maybe you could talk just for a second about how officers can't ignore the little things.
I think that goes back to the culture. Do we have a culture that supports that? And does our culture promote that they have to act? In fact, that Memphis incident, I asked, we had some tabletop discussions on this in our department. I said, okay, you're the two paramedics that are there. What are you going to do? And they said, well, I don't know. And I said, wait a minute, you're not acting. You have to do something. I said, they they did nothing, and they watched the police officers just kick this individual to death, basically. And then one of the paramedics says, well, I think I would say, look, he's down. Let's just let us in there so we can work on him. And I said, and what if they say no? Because I don't think that looking at the videotapes, those individuals, they didn't want to back off. So we talked about that for quite a while. I said, if nothing else, you call on the radio because it's recorded, and you say the officers will not let us close to the victim. This victim is in bad shape. We need another cruiser out here. Things are not good. At least I acted. It's not enough, but that's going to go to court. And those guys, all five of them, I mean, there's 5 against 2, and they are in no mood to listen. So I think that doing something like that would, I think it would stand up in court, that you did act
I think
because
that's
you were
really,
limited on what you could do.
I think that's really good advice to get the monkey off your back, so to speak, and call in on the radio and request supervisory help. And then, like you said, it's recorded. So thank you for that. So I got a question here on what kind of background reference checks do you use and or recommend for new employees?
We do BCI, which is Bureau of Criminal Investigation in Ohio, and then we also do FBI. But better than that, I have a lieutenant, and if I tell her to do a background check on somebody, boy, she can dig up stuff like nobody else can. We recently had an individual that applied, and we called one of his past fire departments where he had worked, and we just asked, or she asked, would you rehire this individual? Now, most of the time, what you'll get is no, we won't, and they won't give you any explanation. This township, I think it was the township manager that she talked to. They said, now I'll tell you why we wouldn't rehire this individual. This individual was working for us, and on his day off, NCIS came up because he was just released from the Navy, and they're doing an investigation on him. Now, that didn't show up in the BCI. That didn't show up in the FBI. But her digging, we found out what, and she goes on Facebook. You can learn a lot about people on Facebook. And that's a shortcut. But yeah, we do. They get fingerprinted. They go through BCI. They go through the FBI, and we also do a background check on their driving if they have any points on their driver's license. Because once they hit 6 points, I can't insure them, so they can't work here.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Well, let's move. Similar kind of question on background, but do you do psychological screening during the hiring process?
Yes.
For volunteers and or career?
Yes. And that is handled by the people that do our physical exams as well. They have a psychologist there that does a good in-depth psychological profile for them. And then I get copies of that. That goes in their personnel file as well. I want to tell you about physicals. You need to do physicals, because what we try to do is we try to find out if they have a pre-existing condition. I had a firefighter years ago that had asthma, and she tried to get disability because she said the fire department caused it. Well, I went back and pulled her file, and she already had a pre-existing condition of severe asthma. So we did not have to pay out on that. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Those are the types of things that I want to see if somebody has a pre-existing cardiac condition, because I don't want them to be put in a position where they're going to have a problem.
Okay, great. I want to, excuse me. I would suggest that one of the things that I think we fail in as chiefs, leaders of departments, it doesn't have to always be the chief, is we don't train our people in how to do positive discipline and negative discipline. And so I would encourage those on the webinar to look into developing. It doesn't have to be a long training session. It could be a 20 minutes, but help our officers, the ones who are newly promoted, and even the more senior ones, how to give someone positive discipline. Yes, in some cases it's fairly simple: a pat on the back, a thank you, a smile. Those are just three examples of some positive discipline. But there are other things that you can do on a regular basis as an officer to acknowledge the members' importance to your organization. And then the other thing, and Tim talked about this several places with some of the scenarios about when you have to discipline somebody, it's about changing their behavior. It's not about punishing them. So with that, Tim, I'll let you finish up, and where I don't have any more questions. I'm gonna let you. Let me just check here. Okay. Nope, I don't have any more questions.
Okay.
But,
One
let you
thing
finish
I
up.
would say is one of the things that I started doing a couple of years ago is sending birthday cards to all of our employees on their birthday. That they seem to really appreciate that I just take the time to do that. We do have a family environment here. We have 8 full-time people and 32 part-time, and they are just wonderful people. We had some of those high maintenance people, and we've kind of rid them we got them out of the department. Let's put it that way. It took us some time, but we finally was able to do it. I am blessed to be the chief of the people that I work with, and so is there another question there?
No, it's Dan telling them where the slides
I
are
saw
at,
something come
how
up.
to get the download. So, well, Tim, thank you very much for your presentation.
I
Very
will.
interesting. Hopefully,
I'll make the handouts available to you. If you go back to that very last slide, yeah, there's my email address and my cell phone. You can text questions to me, or you can send questions to me. Either way is okay with me.
all right.
And I thank all of you for attending.
Just a couple other things here. We have some additional webinars coming up. I'll leave this up just for a second. So if you want to take a screenshot, so you have the dates, get registered. We have, we're trying to do 2 webinars a month, and we've got lots of different instructors coming up. And so we're pretty excited about that on behalf of VCOS. You'll receive a link about the recorded session. So if you got some people you want to see this, then send them the link and let them look at that. It's great that we share this information. So with that, we're coming up on 48 minutes. I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. Thank Tim for his presentation and his work on putting it together, and hope everybody is safe, and God bless each and every one of you. Good night.